Today on Second Story.
What you believe matters. So a lot of times what we do is we believe it, so we believe because we believe it that that's the reality, that that's the truth. And dude, you want to be updating your belief systems all the time. Create your future with the future vision you have of yourself. Cast yourself out there. Like, what do I want to be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Like, what am I looking to accomplish? Who would I have to be today to be that person?
A nightmare I'm living in. He called me crazy, called me drunk, and I said, I know well, I can see right through you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Second Story. I'm Josh Sobalski, joined as always by Corey Leckie. Corey, how are things?
Things are great, Josh. I got a good meal in and I'm ready to go.
Excited to talk to today's guest. Today we're joined by Justin Prince. Justin is an author whose journey began flipping pizzas and working construction. He eventually was able to build 5 multi-million-dollar businesses that have generated over $2.5 billion in revenue. That's billion with a B. Justin's journey is the blueprint for intentional success. Again, I mentioned he's an author. He's the author of Be the One, which is a universal roadmap designed to help each of us live an unforgettable life. Justin, welcome to Second Story.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. And you guys look, I got the WWE belt. I got the dog. I got the blue light. Like, this is like we're mooting out hard in here.
Yeah, your lights are good too. They're a pretty good match for us.
Yeah, man, I feel like I need to get more blue lights back over here.
My wife always says that this is overkill. She's like, Josh, it's a bit much. Like, yeah, whatever. It looks great on screen.
Hey, babe, I'm the WWE champion. This is normal for me, okay?
Oh.
I have begged her to let me buy the old school 90s belt. I'm still going to buy it someday, but she's like, do you really need to spend that kind of money on another belt? I'm like, yes, it's for the show. It's a business expense.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. It's a business expense. It's an investment, sweetheart.
Yeah. You can come convince her for me. So, Justin, we are Second Story. We talk to people who have gone through a major change in their life that sent them down a different path. We're very excited to hear your story and share it with our audience. So if you will, we'd love to hear what that defining moment was for you.
Yeah, it's such an interesting title to a podcast, The Second Story, because, stories have what's called the arc of the story. So it's like you go down through the valley, then you like persevere, and then you finally make it to the top. And my journey has had a couple different arcs. About a year and a half ago, I had a really, really, really significant arc after being on a peak. And so Second Story is just such an appropriate name. But let me kind of walk you through some of those first turning points that kind of led to the foundation of my career. I came from my folks got divorced when I was 12. We moved 13 times in the 7 years through the teenage years. And as you kind of mentioned in the intro, I have really no professional background. I was making pizzas, doing construction work. I worked at a mall kiosk selling animated Bible videos. What I did have is I had big dreams and big goals. And I felt like my life, I wanted it to matter. And I felt like maybe I had the ability to make it matter. And I was introduced to entrepreneurship at 25. My first business failed. Went all in on this business, 25 years old. And I was below zero financially, back on credit cards, back on taxes after that failed. I moved my pregnant wife and our 2 kids into the loft of my wife's parents' garage. I have 2 little kids sleeping in the closet. My wife and I are sleeping in this little loft area. I pick up 2 part-time jobs and then another business. I started another business to try and be free financially. And anyway, long story short, over the next number of years, I helped to create a company out of it was an existing company that had 8 years in a row of declining revenue. So they're going the wrong direction. They were bought by private equity. And we came in as part of a transformation team and we did billions of dollars in revenue with that company. And, I was kind of living my best life to be honest with you. I was making more money than I've ever made in my life. And, in 2021, the private equity company had levered up the company had structured on a bunch of debt that we got the company up to about $500 million a year. And they had levered up hundreds of millions of dollars of debt. And so when that happened, it put the company, 2022 revenue softened just a little bit, but it put the company in a very precarious financial situation because the debt load was so much that any fluctuation of revenue, was not awesome really fast. By 2023, the company was basically in dire straits. And so my income had gone down from 10 million in 2021 to 8 million in 2022 to 5 million in 2023. So you're down 50%, but still you're making $5 million a year, for crying out loud, with your your business. So it's still meaningful and significant. And if you're a private equity company and you can't pay the bills, that 5 million starts looking less like an asset and more like an expense, So with that phone call, my family, we landed in New York for fall break. I'm the number one earner in the company. I'm kind of the face of the company. Without a phone call, they send me an email saying, "You're terminated." And that was on Thursday night. On Monday, they sued me. I sued them. And it was like a $2 billion private equity firm, with one of the biggest law firms in America versus me. I was just like, OMG, here we go. And I knew, I sat my kids down. We get into the hotel. It's about 11:15 at night. I've got a headache. We've been traveling all day. I buy my kids room service because they're all like starving because they've all been traveling all day. And we're sitting there, and I sit them down, and I said to him, I go, "Your dad's a fighter." I said, I'm going to fight back. I said, "This is so wrong what these guys are doing. And I'm not going to, I'm going to stick up for us. I'm going to stick up for myself." And I just said, "I'm not done. Our best days as a family are still ahead of us. Like I'm going to fight back." My little kids are like sitting there eating. They're like, their French fry, like, "Oh man, my dad's pretty intense." I wanted to like burst into tears, but I also was fired up. I was like, there's just no way I'm going out like this. Like, this is so dirty what's happening. And, it's interesting. So we battled in this lawsuit. I'd seen the legal system used as a weapon before. Like I'd seen it like in politics, or I'd seen it like on the news or something like that, but I'd never actually seen it in real life. I'd never like actually experienced it where someone, you can create a fake narratives and you can just kind of create a whole thing, and it's pretty intimidating when you have a $2 billion fund versus you. It's pretty intimidating. And we crushed these. They went through 4 different law firms because we kept winning, every time in court and so on. And, it obviously helps when you have truth on your side, but the legal system is massively expensive. Your income goes from zero and you're spending 100 something thousand a month to defend yourself. Like, this is not a fun ride. And, but we dug in there and I defended myself and won. And so during that process, I started asking myself what I want to do for the rest of my life. This is the second story, right? And so I've always been in the kind of the health and wellness world. That's been where I built most of my career. And I've been learning a lot about the peptides. You're hearing about like a lot of the injections with the peptides. Those are synthetic chemical compounds that they compound together that are made in a lab that you typically inject. And as I was studying peptides, I found these biotech labs around the world that are using artificial intelligence to identify and to isolate and to do human clinicals on peptides that are from nature, that you can actually run through the gut like a nutritional supplement. So like a stick pack or a capsule instead of having to inject them. And I remember, and so they're Mother Nature made them versus a man, that you don't have to inject them. You can run through the gut. I was just like, man, this is like the future of wellness. And so we started a company called Make Wellness. We started shipping products almost a year ago, about 10 months ago.
Okay.
And I remember thinking we had a chance to really change the future of wellness. And our biggest first year projections, our most aggressive, projections for year one were to do 18 million in revenue. So to give you some context, 0.04% of companies that launch ever do 10 million in a year. So if your goal is 18 million in year one, and 0.04% of companies ever do 10 million ever in their whole existence, that's a pretty aggressive goal, right? Well, this first year we'll do over $100 million in revenue in year one. And it's just one of those just kind of just lightning in a bottle, stories. And we put together just an incredible team. And I'll tie it back into the second story, because it's like, there was a time when I thought, when I was going through all this legal stuff and I was defending myself, I remember thinking, I was like, are these guys going to crush me? Like, are they going to crush my reputation so much? And it was like the exact opposite effect. It was like people watched this happen. And instead of saying, I would never want to work with him. They're kind of like, that's my kind of guy. Like stands up for himself, stands up for people, like protects the little guy, doesn't get pushed around, and and is shoots people straight. So it was almost like all of that. It's like the Mexican proverb. It says that they tried to bury us, they didn't realize we were seeds. That's literally what happened. So here we are, a year and a half later from that, and it's almost like one of those, life didn't happen to you, it happened for you. It's all part of the story. It's all part of the second story in this case.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty wild. I've seen you talk a few times about your, what you've gone through the last little while. And one of the things that I really admire about you is the levels of resilience that you have. And you talk about this in your book as well. How much do you think going through difficult times when you were a lot younger helped you in a case like this, where obviously you're a bit older, more experienced? How is that early, being forced to be resilient early in your life? How did that help you with something like this?
Yeah, it's just a great question. So there was two sons. This is a true story. There was two sons that were twins, and their dad was strung out on drugs in and out of prison. And they said to the one son who was strung out on drugs in and out of prison, they said, "How did you end up this way?" And the kid said, "Isn't it obvious? Look at my father." And then they asked the other son, who's an executive for a Fortune 500 company, has a beautiful family, he's living his best life, kind of rural America, just healthy, happy family. They said, "How did you end up this way?" He says, "Isn't it obvious? Look at my father." And like, I look at my dad. My dad is a resilient dude. It's like one of the like I look at him, and like one of the things I admire the most about him, and there's many things, but one of them is he just kept getting back up. I remember he said to me when I was a little kid once, he goes, if you get bucked off the horse, and he was talking like the proverbial horse of life, just if you get bucked off the horse of life, he goes, you have really two options. He goes, one is you can lay there and bleed and cry and just lay there in the dirt and just bleed. He said, or you can get back up, you can like dig the rocks and gravel out of your wounds, you can dust yourself off, and you can get back on the horse and go again. And to me, like, that second option made more sense. I'm not going to lay there forever. You know how it is. Sometimes you lay there for an hour or something, or maybe, whatever, lay there for a day if you want, but at some point, get back up and get going. And I do think it anchored in identity. So in my book, I talk a lot about how success is an identity process. You're never going to outperform the way you see yourself. So for example, if you see yourself as a loser, you're not going to show up and play the game like a winner. If you see yourself as a winner, you're not going to roll over and quit like a loser. James Clear in Atomic Habits writes the story of the boys. There's two boys, one of which stole the candy, and they said to the two boys, they said, "Who stole the candy?" He said, "Did you steal the candy?" The little boy said, "I didn't steal the candy." They said to the second boy, "Did you steal the candy?" And the little boy said, "I don't steal." So I don't steal is an identity. I didn't steal that particular piece of candy is an action, right? And so
Yeah.
I just remember thinking to myself, it's even like when I said to my kids, when this whole thing happened, when they're eating their French fries in their room service, I remember saying, I was like, "Your dad's a fighter, and I'm freaking going to fight back." And I just remember thinking, these guys picked the wrong guy. Like, I'm not going to roll over and quit and just let them crush me. Like, I'm going to stand up for myself. And so that is that resilience where you're just willing to get back up after you get knocked down. I think leaders ask two great questions. There's two great leadership questions that we ask ourselves as leaders. And by the way, whether you're leaders of a home, leaders in a relationship, leader in a business, leader in your career, leader in your faith, there's two great questions. One is a depth question. The second one's a duration question. So the first one is how far. So it's like, how far do I fall when negativity hits? Like, we've all met people, that have been through some real life stuff, whether it's addiction or bankruptcy or divorce or, man, the whole list of really challenging things that people go through. And we've met people that have hit rock bottom in their life. They fell literally to like bouncing onto the bottom of gravel of rock bottom, right? The second question, so the first one's duration, depth. How far do you fall? Second question is duration. It's how long do you stay down? So it's like how far and then how long the duration. Because I would share with you guys that we've both, or all three of us have met folks that have hit rock bottom, been through some real life stuff. And guess what? They freaking bounce back. Like, they're like living their best life now. Like they got their finances back in order. They're in a beautiful relationship now. Like, they're mentally and emotionally healthy. They're through the addiction. Like, they actually made it through. Like, they didn't stay down forever. Now, we also all know people, all of us listening, that have hit rock bottom in their life and are still on rock bottom. And it's been 6 months, 6 years, 60 years. They're still kind of bouncing on rock bottom. So the two questions, one, how far? The second one is how long? It's the duration question. And resiliency, you use that word. Resiliency literally means basically how long do you stay down? Like how long until you bounce back up? And to me, listen, like it hurts me just like it hurts you. You know what I'm saying? Like we all go through those pains of life, but I'm not going to stay down for that long. I want to bounce back up and stay in the fight a little bit and keep moving forward.
Yeah. So we did an episode recently about limited beliefs. What would you say to somebody who's maybe stuck in that limited mindset, or they have a self-image that's kind of limiting, or they have limited beliefs? What would you say to them to kind of update their identity?
Yeah. So couple thoughts on updating your identity. Couple of just quick thoughts. The first one I would share is what you believe matters. So a lot of times what we do is we believe it. So we believe because we believe it, that's the reality, that's the truth. And dude, you want to be updating your belief systems all the time. Like you want to ask yourself, like almost like push pause and just say, why do I believe that? Is that belief serving me? Is that an empowering belief? What would I have to believe if that wasn't true? Like you can update this stuff just from stopping and pausing. It's like the thought leads to the feeling. What the focus equals feeling. Like what you focus on will equal a feeling. Someone cuts you off on the road when you're driving and you say to yourself, this freaking jerk, what a freaking jerk, and then you want to go cut them off, that kind of thing. Well, that thought of, man, they're a jerk, that leads to a feeling, the emotion. What if you get cut off on the freeway and you say, I wonder if something really is happening in their life right now. Maybe their wife is having a child, or they just heard their son is hit by a car. All of a sudden, that focus, that thought will lead to a different feeling, so that what you focus on, you'll feel. But then the third thing is that leads to an action. So it goes your thoughts, then the feelings, then the action. Well, you can update the thoughts. You don't have to just be a slave to your thoughts. Like you can update the stuff. Second thing I'd share with you is that your past doesn't have to be predictive. Like you can literally create an entirely new future. I tell people, create your future with your future, not your past. Create your future with your future, not your past. In other words, create your future with the future vision you have of yourself. Cast yourself out there. Like, what do I want to be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years? Like, what am I looking to accomplish? Who would I have to be today to be that person, in 5 years? And you can start, that's the beautiful thing about humans, like a tree. If a tree can't move, it's just stuck right there. Like a human can change and move and adapt and grow. I tell the story in my book about one of my dear, sweet friends in Southern California, a guy named Jaime Molina. Jaime is a really devout in his Catholic faith. He's married to his beautiful wife, Ramona. They have these two beautiful daughters. And he works in the financial services industry, but then kind of at night, as it were, he serves in his community by helping troubled youth. And he tells the story of a man named E9400. E9400 was born on the border town in Texas, El Paso, of Mexico in the States. He was introduced to, he was raised up without a father, was introduced to alcohol when he was 8, was introduced to sex. He was actually sexually molested by someone 24 years older than him at 9, became sexually active. Was introduced to drugs, really hard drugs, at like 13, 14, became a mule for the cartels at 14. Then he was put into San Quentin federal prison at 22. And Jaime says to these kids, and I'd ask you guys, you ask your audience, he says, what do you think happened to E9400? So, you play that back, introduced to alcohol, sexually active at 9, sexually abused, introduced to hard cocaine and drugs, becomes a mule for the cartels. He's in prison at San Quentin. Like, what do you think happens? I mean, it's just like, OMG, the odds of this turning out well are really low.
Yeah. So
one day, Jaime comes into class and he says, I've got a special guest for you kids. And they said, who's that? And he goes, remember I told you that story of E9400? He goes, he's out in the hallway. And the kids are like, what? No way, So Jaime walks out and walks right back in, shuts the door. The door shuts behind him, walks to the front of the room. And he said, I am E9400. E9400 was my identity. It was his prison identification number when he's in San Quentin. And he said, this incredibly sweet, powerful, deeply spiritual, devoted husband, devoted father was E9400. That was his identity. For many years of his life, that was his identity. And he had to update the identity because Jaime Molina was not born to be E9400. He was born to be, this devoted husband, devoted father, great member of his community, a guy that builds his financial services business and serves the troubled youth. That's who he was born to be. He started having to create his vision and his future with his future version of himself, right? So one of the things I like to say to people that are kind of stuck in that identity is that what you did is not who you are. Have you guys ever had that happen where you're like, yeah, but you don't understand, dude. Like, I've done some like stupid stuff, or like, I'm lazy, I'm a procrastinator, I have ADD. Like, we start speaking all this stuff over us. What you did is not who you are, but what you repeatedly do is. And so we are not what we did, but we are what we repeatedly do. If you do it over and over and over, it starts to shape in habits, and your habits will ultimately define who you are. The good news is you can build new habits. So we all make mistakes. What you did isn't who you are. We all do stupid things, but you can change that stuff and build new habits, habits with a new identity. That's one of the things I teach in the book is what new habits to start building, how to cast out of some vision, how to start like pulling yourself through this stuff. Because I look at myself, if you would have asked, I had a guy asking once, I did a newspaper or a magazine interview, and we finished the interview. It was like on leadership or something like that. Anyway, the interview stops and the guy goes, we're like taking off the mics and, whatever. And he goes, how did this happen for you? Like, how did you go from like divorced family, bouncing around, moving 13 times in 7 years, no college education, to like doing billions in revenue? Like, what the freak? Like, how did that happen? And it really was that process we just talked about. Is building new habits, casting out a vision for your life, and then not letting your past be predictive. Like what's happened to you today does not have to be predictive of what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
Nice.
You have a good quote about that. You can't always control what happens, but you can try to control what happens next.
Yeah,
I think
for
that's
sure.
one of your quotes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
I really enjoyed your book. I particularly liked how you had a lot of practical things in it, like step-by-step guidance. And I love the stories too. Just really, really hits home when you can hear that story and just kind of put it to your own life. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about the rule of 33. Because Josh and I talk a lot about having kind of a circle of people that are ahead of us or mentors, that kind of thing. But the rule of 33 was really interesting to me.
Yeah. So the rule of 33 basically says to spend 33% of your time with people that are basically where you're at in life, meaning you're making, 70 grand a year. They're your friends. You can talk, you can strategize, they have 2 kids, you got 2 kids, they're kind of where you're at. 33% of your time really intentionally and proactively with people that are above you. You're making 70 grand a year. They're making 200 grand a year, right? Like they're like, dang, dude, how you doing this? And, you have 2 kids, they have 3, you're at 15% body fat. They're at 10. You're like, dang, what are you doing over there, bro? And so you're hyper intentional with people that are further down the path than you are. Like they have some, like you've been married for 3 years. They've been married for 33, you're just like, how did you pull that off? And then the other 33% of your time is with people that are in essence below you on the journey, meaning you're making 70, they're making 50. You've been married for 3 years. They're not married yet. You're at 15% body fat. They're at 18. I mean, it's just like, they're people that you could mentor, you could coach, you could pour into, like you could invest your time and energy in helping them to avoid some of the pitfalls and some of the challenges. I just, we've heard in success, you hear like, for example, like you'll be a collection of the top 5 people you surround yourself with most. And I 100% agree that who you hang out with matters. There's no question. I have a bunch of research in the book about the power of association. However, I think it's just hyper incomplete to just say the top 5 because, think about it. Like the top 5, like we spend a ton of time with the guy that sits next to you in the cubicle at work. You probably spend more time with that guy than you do, your spouse, for crying out loud, just because you're at your employment so long. And so you want to get more intentional than that. Just rubbing off on the guy next to you at work, You want to get more intentional. Get yourself in rooms with people that lift you up. You want to be the poorest, dumbest person in the room if at all possible. If you're always the smartest, richest one, I just joined a really kind of exclusive group, if you will. Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi do one. There's like 25 people in the group, and it's it's a big investment and just the whole thing. And I'm like looking forward to being in that room because I'll be hopefully at least the poorest, dumbest guy in the room. And that's a good thing, dude. You start thinking different when people around you are playing the game at levels that you're not. And I've always tried to get in those rooms. I've always tried to proactively be around people that inspire me. And then I also try intentionally to like work with people that are like, to like give time and energy to people that are on the way up. I just feel like it's a way to pour into them and like lift them up a little bit, because I had people that lifted me up as I went. So that's the way I look at the rule of 33. 33% of your time, people above you, 33% of your time, people that are basically where you're at. You can cheer them on. They can cheer you on. You guys can strategize. And then 33% of your time are folks that you can help lift and inspire.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've heard you say who you empowers matters just as much as who empowers you.
Yeah,
that kind of plays into the rule of 33s.
For sure.
One of the things that we talk a lot about on this show is, younger. Our audience is or the audience that we're targeting is, largely males, but between the ages of like 20 and 35, because Corey and I struggled through those periods of our life. Obviously, you talk about it in your book. You did as well. And so that's kind of who we're targeting. But one of the things that I found, at least talking to people in that age group, is there's this real, allergy to adapting. And a lot of folks kind of grew up with this mindset of this is what the world was going to be like. And now it's not that world, kind of the one that they were promised. And they're just not adapting to what's in front of them. But human beings, like historically, we're pretty good at adapting, right? And I've heard you talk a little bit about this. What would you say to somebody who's in that 20 to 35 and they're sort of shocked by what the world is and they don't know what to do?
Yeah, I mean, freak. First of all, I'm feeling their pain. I mean, our home ownership the average median home ownership age was 27. It's now 38. It's a challenging time when you're 20 to 35 or 20 to 40. You're kind of like, what the freak? And to your point, we do have to adapt. But the most important thing I'd share with you is this: you've got to get better. You got to rid yourself of all entitlement and raise your personal responsibility, like personal accountability. So think of it like a pulley system. And I know this advice sounds real harsh, but man, I'm just telling you, once you walk through this rid and raise process, this is the foundation that you can build the rest of your life on. So although it's hard to do, and it because we like to hold on to some of these things, this is how you break free. So rid yourself. Imagine as you rid, you actually raise at the same time. It's like a pulley system. So rid yourself of all entitlement. I just got to say to yourself, no one freaking owes me anything. My family doesn't owe anything. The government doesn't owe me anything. No one owes me anything. Like, I'm going to go out there and like earn it. It's like, think about it this way. It's like we all love our parents. Like, we love our mom, even if your parents weren't the best parents in the world, you still love your parents because it's your mom. Like, of course you love your mom, right? But we don't always respect people. Respect is earned. Like, you don't I know people like I like them. I even know people I love that I don't necessarily like respect, particularly in certain areas, right? But like, I still like the person. I have no issue with them. I just wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to take that advice from them. I don't respect their advice in that particular area. The point is you want to rid yourself of all entitlement. You just say to yourself, you know what? I'm going to go earn it in my life. I'm going to go pay the price, earn the skills, I'm going to earn it. I don't expect anyone's going to give it to me. That's this huge, like, rid yourself. You just kind of think about this word rid, like just rip it out, just rid yourself. But at the same time, you raise your personal responsibility. You say, I'm going to go earn this. I'm going to go own my life. I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to be a victor. Like, you just mindset shift of like, I'm going to own this thing. I'm going to provide for my family. I'm going to provide for my kids. Like, I'm going to go make this thing happen. Right. When you do that, that then leads you into where you can really improve and get better. Because here's what I'll share with you. Is it a challenging time for kids that are 20 to 35? I think it is. But guess what? It also creates huge opportunity. It's like the word crisis. The word crisis is a Greek word. We could make a case that our kids today are it's a crisis time. It's a really challenging time. Look at all the statistics with depression, anxiety, self-harm, the whole thing. We could make that case really, really clearly. The word crisis in Chinese is a symbol. They write it in a symbol. So like we would write with letters, they write in symbols. The symbol for the word crisis means two things. It means danger. That's what when you see the symbol, it means danger. The symbol also means opportunity. Like, this is such a huge opportunity for kids to lead. You can stand out in a really extraordinary way. Show up early, stay late, read the extra book, attend the extra event. Like, man, you rid yourself of all entitlement right now. You raise your personal responsibility right now. You will stand out. And, Martin Luther King says, stars shine brightest in the darkest nights. The reason stars shine brightest in the darkest nights is because the dark night creates contrast. And so if all the stars shine bright and you choose to shine bright, you're going to blend in. But if none of the stars shine bright, if it's a crisis time, if it's a hard time, there's like lots of like danger. It's like a hard time for people, and you choose to shine bright. So in the dark night, you shine bright, you're going to stand out. The dark night creates your contrast. The dark night creates your moment. So like, this is your moment, man. Listen, you're 20 years old right now. This is your moment. You can differentiate yourself and stand out with just those mindset shifts, and then go build the skills, like go adapt to the new world, like go build the skills, because you'll stand out more than anyone else. And it's just like, it's like easier to win the race because no one else is, it's such a dark time that you shine bright, you're going to win the race.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Okay, Justin, so if you were to title the movie of your life, what would that title be?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's two that come to mind, right? One is Gladiator, and I don't mean to make it like too dramatic or whatever, but I do feel like I've been a fighter my whole life for sure, and I feel like I've stood up for myself, I've stood up for my family, like I've stood up for freedom, trying to chase freedom, like I've fought for it for sure, and so that'd be one. But the other one is like kind of that pursuit of happiness. I remember watching that one when I was living in the loft in my wife's parents' garage. My little, I had a little boy, little girl. They were sleeping in the closet area, and I literally cried during that show. Like, oh my gosh, I could like just relate to this dude, out there just freaking fighting for it. And I was like trying to like not let anyone see that I was crying, but it like hit me hard. And it's that pursuit of freedom. And here's what I would share with your audience, like. Les Brown, you want to be a fighter. You want to fight for your family, fight for your finances, fight for your future, like fight for your freedom. So Les Brown said, if you want a thing bad enough to go out and fight for it, to work day and night for it, to give up your time and your peace and your sleep for it, if all that you dream and scheme is about it and life seems useless and worthless without it, and if you'll gladly sweat for it and fret for it and plan for it and give up your terror of the opposition for it, if you'll simply go after that thing that you want with all of your capacity, strength and sagacity, faith, hope, confidence, and stern pertinacity, if neither sickness nor pain, body and brain can keep you away from the thing that you want, if dogged and grim you beseech and you beset it, with the help of God, you will get it. And so you got to freaking go fight for this stuff. It's again, you got to earn it. Like, this stuff is just not given, and you've got to go fight, go fight for your family and fight for your finances and fight for your freedom and fight for your future. Perfect.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect note for us to end on. Justin, where can people find you?
Yeah. So, I'm across all social platforms. It's either Justin Prince or I am Justin Prince. IamJustinPrince.com. You can go there as well. My book's across wherever you buy your favorite books. It's called Be the One. That's a life-changing book, by the way, guys. So like, that's one of those books you read and you're like, I think, to your point, there's practical stuff in there. It's not just meant to inspire, it's meant to teach and train and like actually help you. So, if I can serve you guys or serve your audience, that's definitely what I want to do. I'm a beneficiary. Aristotle said, if I've seen further, it's only by standing on the shoulders of giants. I've been able to stand on mentors' shoulders, and that's what helped me see further. And so being able to pour that into the next generation I have a ton of passion for that.
Awesome. Yeah, I can echo that. It's an excellent book.
Yeah. Another thing that I'll just add about the book. So in preparation for this podcast, I was listening to it, at the gym and driving and listening to your audiobook version, which is great, by the way. The only thing is I got to go back and do it again so that I can take notes. So I need to sit down with it because there's so many great pieces of advice in there that I got to go back and actually take notes on it. So great job on that book. It's amazing.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Appreciate the great work you're doing and the value you're adding. It's really awesome.
Thanks so much, Justin. Thanks for doing the show. Appreciate it.
So thanks again for tuning in to Second Story. Flip the script, write your sequel. See you on the next one.